you know what hip shape you are? Heart, diamond, or just plain old straight? Hi everyone, I'm Glenda with SureFit Designs, often referred to as Glenda the Good Stitch. I'm offering you a short mini-series on hip shapes. This particular video is just going to introduce you to the basic shapes. Now, I do realize that there can be variations in each of these shapes, but for the most part, we're going to just look at generalities, and then you be thinking about what hip shape you fall into. And then as I proceed in this mini-series, I'm going to be showing you each and every shape individually as it pertains to drawing off your basic pant pattern and your basic skirt pattern with SureFit Designs. So what I'd like to do right now is just give you a general overview of what these shapes look like and then some measurements so that you can start thinking about what is your hip shape. First of all, we're going to start with a straight shaped hip figure. Now, you have to realize that these photographs have been given to me by our customers, and I want to thank you so much for your cooperation. Most of these are photographs that have been taken at home under less than ideal circumstances. So everybody does their best, but I do know that they'll give you a really good understanding of what the shape is like. So we're going to start off with the straight or rectangular shaped hip person. And this lady wearing the dark leotards, you can see that she has very little difference between her waist, her high hip, and her low hip. If anything, her low hip is a little bit smaller than her waist and her high hip. But as you look at her front and her back photographs, she is basically straight. The next example that I'm showing you of a straight rectangular shaped hip person is this lady in the white top. Now, her waist is actually larger than her high hip and her low hip. But when it starts to come around to pattern drawing time, she really does fall into the category of a straight shaped person. Now, her particular measurements are in her waist, she is 41 inches, high hip is 39.5, and low hip is 38. And I guess you could call her a little bit of an inverted triangle, but again, the dimensions are so close to one another that she really does come into this straight-shaped category. The second category I'd like to discuss is the diamond-shaped hip person. The first photograph we'll take a look at is the lady in the black tights. And if you look at her back photograph, first of all, you get a really, really good example of what a diamond-shaped hip person is like. You can see a very small waist circumference going into her, as she slides down past her high hip to a very low full hip. Now, this particular person, when she is purchasing clothes and ready to wear, obviously the diamond-shaped hip person needs to get a garment to fit over her low hips. But then, as it comes up into the waistline, you know ready to wear, that waistline is simply going to be way too big. We can easily solve that with SureFit Designs. Now, her particular measurements are 28 inches in the waist, 38 in the high hip, and 40.5 in the low hip. Now, if you subtract 28 for her waist from the 40.5 for her low hip, I'm just going to call it 41 for the sake of subtraction here, she has a 13-inch differential between her waist and her low hip, very definitely putting her into the category of a diamond-shaped hip person. The second diamond shape I'll show you is this lady in the pink pants. Now, her measurements are 37 inches in the waist, high hip is 47 inches, and low hip is 53 inches. She has a little bit more rounding in her backside and in her high hip, but the differential between her waist and her low hip is actually 16 inches. Again, she very definitely falls into the category of the diamond-shaped hip person. And the last category that I'm going to talk about is the heart-shaped hip person. Here you get most of your weight being contained or carried in your high hip area. The waist is typically quite a bit smaller, and when you look at a heart-shaped hip person, their waist indents really quickly. They have difficulty wearing any kind of pant or skirt with any kind of a waistband because it just rolls inside in their waistline. And then at anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 inches down, they blossom out into their high hip dimension. And then the low hip is smaller than the high hip. And that's why they're called a heart-shaped hip person. Now, the photograph of this lady in the white pants here, her waist is 30 inches around, her high hip is 40 inches around at 2.5 inches down. So she has a 10-inch differential between waist and high hip, meaning this portion of her pattern is very curvy, and her low hip is 38 inches. So those are the three main categories that I'm going to talk about in this little mini series. Now, while you're waiting for the next video to come out, I am going to, number one, encourage you to sign up for the SureFit Designs newsletter. And you can do that by going to surefitdesigns.com. There'll be a little pop-up, and when you do, there are 4 free gifts to get you started. And make sure that you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, SureFit Designs. When you do that, you're going to get notifications of when the next video comes along. So give it a couple of days and the very first video on the heart shape is going to come out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you really soon.